don't forward it to 10 people, you'll be cast. Yes. You know, my God, the God I serve doesn't threaten people. He gave us a free will. Okay? Yes, I'll preach it, brother. Okay? So, the key rule, take responsibility. Okay? If you know it is going to haunt you, and now all people look at your social media accounts because they are available. That's the golden rule. Okay? So, I've just told you my own rules. There are things I don't share. I don't forward. I'm on the UASU platform. Dr. Fronica knows about it. I don't comment. Okay? Unless it's an intellectual debate. Sawa. And I can come in from an objective angle and say, according to so and so, I even escape responsibility. But they say this and that. Sawa. Are we together? Yes. Not that I don't chat, I do. Okay? But I must take responsibility. Lastly, on the issue of career guidance. Unfortunately, there are many of us who find ourselves in undergraduate programs we have not thought about. Some people are orphans, some people lack that social networking skills from the family level. Okay? And so they come, they do a course, they pass, but they have no idea. That is why networkings like these ones are important. You are the ambassadors. Take this back to your institutions. Can you do it at department level? Can it be done at school level? Okay? Getting the students in that school to understand something about career choices. Okay? So from today, you become ambassadors of career sensitization. Thank you. Let me ask Dr. Fronica to add what she wants to add as she concludes. Then we give to the next presenter.
Thank you, thank you. I just wanted to point out that career development is a dynamic and an ongoing process through which every other time you must remain proactive and adaptive, because there are changes in career every other day. And we must be able to create our own career goals and also aspirations that will obviously change over time. That you may aspire to be something and then later you change your mind. So there is need for periodic self-assessment so that you can be able to set your goals looking at your values and interests, as it were. So it's not something that is one-off. Every other time you have to think. As I grew up, I probably wanted to be a lawyer. Then with time, I realized I may not go into law. So I wanted to be a teacher like my parents. Then I said that that is a career for me. But once I finished campus, I did not become a teacher. I became an administrator. Then I said I have lost my direction. I have to rework back to the teaching profession. What do I need to do so that I can be able to do what? Get what I have interest in, what I am aspiring to be. I need probably to go for training and more education. Then I went back to teaching. So in my career, I started off something else and I moved on to another level, but I went back to my career. So there will be periodic self-assessment that you will have to do and set goals so that you can be able to get. When you are passionate about something, for sure you will not go wrong. So in your career development, it's not a one-stop shop. It's something that you'll periodically keep on assessing that what do I want to do? I am already a teacher. That's what I aspired to be. Then later I said, I need to do some research. I need to do some consultancy. I need to do more training than the training I do in class so that I can be able to do that. So I reevaluate my objectives every other time, my goals, as I continue with my career path. Maybe I will change and say, now I want to be a farmer. What do I do in order to call myself a farmer? So that I have to put systems in place so that you can be able to. So you have to be proactive. It's a dynamic field through which you have to work through. So that's what I wanted to highlight. That once you have that in place, then you are on the right path. It's not clear-cut. So that you reshape it from what Rose talked about, from your personal contacts, from your professional contacts, and from even casual contacts as you meet them. Then you reevaluate where you want to be. Thank you for that very enlightening presentation.
Yeah, in conclusion and in a direct answer to Yusuf, with this girl, you need to actually ask her, what does she want to do? It has to come from her. What does she feel within her that she wants to do and she can pursue? Because without that, if you give her any other choice, that is not from her, she will be frustrated. Yes, so, and then based on what she has already done, what does she see herself 5 years from now? Thank you. Thank you, MC. I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. It's exactly 12:30. We want to give you a hand of applause for keeping time, first of all. Then number two, thank you for the your guidance on career development skills. Personally, I've benefited. But one thing that you mentioned that while you're checking your contacts, you may be able to ask someone, hey, MC, there's a job here. So I'm going to give you my contact when you're thinking about someone. Yes. So now we're going to a very special session. This session is about how you relate, because without it, the emails, the social media, how we talk, how we speak, verbal, written, it's about communication. Organizations are run by communication strategies, how you relate, how you talk to the person you're going to marry, all those, that is communication. So with me, let me invite Mr. Mlebwa to take us through. Thank you. And to remind you, he's the one standing between your lunch. So don't worry, he's going to.
Thank you so much. A good afternoon to us all. After such an introduction and a threat that I'm standing in between people's lunch. Good afternoon once again. Joseph, like we've heard, thank you so much, Dr. Rose. I have learned a lot of things. One of the speakers did say, if you want to learn, keep listening. No one ever learned by talking. So if every time you're talking and you never get to sit to listen, you'll never do what? You never learn anything. Okay. So this is indeed an important topic that we are going to talk about. I'll try my best. It's quite a number of slides, but we'll just highlight a few things. I pray that you follow together with me. Please don't think about lunch now until 1:10. All right. So communication. Communication is something that is. I don't feel so much covered. Can you hear me? You need the mic for the machine. All right. So communication. Many of us here have different definitions. What we call communication. We are going to look at a few things here that we'll appreciate. So in the layman's language, when we talk about communication, means some people will say speaking, writing, sending a message to another person. Everyone will say that is communication. But really, as we are going to see, communication is really much more than that, as it involves a number of things, among which you have the sender of the message, you have the person receiving the message. But the key thing here is your message is directed towards a certain target audience. And another important thing is you're looking at the receiver, understanding the message you've sent to him or her, and then responding in an appropriate way. Because your response is empowered by your understanding, right? Are we right? Not like you can respond if a person says, for example, how old are you? And you say, I'm a female. It is a response, not so? But that means you didn't conceptualize what you had. So you say, how old are you? I'm coming from Kenya. That means there's a problem. I'm an adult. Okay? So there has to be an understanding which comes before the response. That is, if it's an appropriate response. So communication is an important aspect of behavior, and human communication is affected by all factors that influence human behavior. So this is key, something I want us to note here, that anything that affects your behavior will affect the way you communicate. I like the way Dr. Rose put it, that communication is something that is lacking, especially, I want to say, in our generation. I'm closer to Dr. Rose's generation. So what are the factors that affect behavior? And like we've said, what affects behavior will in the long run affect the way you communicate. So I highlighted a few things here for us that affect behavior. We have physical factors, talk about age, your health, illness, pain, influence of substance or medication. I don't know, our friends from Kenya, whether substance abuse is on the rise. Recently in our country, there is a projection that was produced, and they said by 35, we'll have more than 50% that will be having a problem with their mental state. That is Uganda. That is a threatening statistic. So personal and emotional factors, we look at personality, all these things, beliefs, expectations, emotions, mental health, all these do affect the way you communicate. Life experiences, your family, doctor talked about the support, culture, friends, life events, all these things determine and influence the way you communicate. Lastly, your needs and wants. What you need will determine how you communicate. If you are really focused onto something and the other person speaking to you is speaking another thing, your view is another, it will affect the way you communicate. Either you respond arrogantly or in a friendly manner. So all those things do affect communication. So generally, communication, most of the English words, I won't say most, but let's just say most of them, have some origin from some other language. So communication comes from a Latin word. Who can pronounce that for me? Anyone who has studied Latin here? There are many professors in the house. See, professors know a lot of languages. Anyone can pronounce that for me? Communicare. You see? I was going to pronounce it the wrong way, and professors will say, what is he doing up there? Thank you for saving me. So it comes from that Latin word, which literally or simply means to make common or to share. That is communication. As Judy Pearson did say, that it is defined as a process of using messages to generate meaning. And other researchers that have talked about it, like David, talking about communication as a process. So a process is something that is ongoing. So basically that's what is in our general definition. Don't forget I'm standing in between your lunch. So working definition, the other one was a general definition. So working definition, this is key for us. I want us to focus on it. Communication is a process of transmitting information and meaning. So you don't just transmit information, but you transmit what also? Meaning. You're transmitting information and meaning from one individual or organization to another by means of mutually understandable what? Symbols. You know, there are people who do sign language, not so? Do they communicate? So if you've not studied sign language, you won't understand what the other part. We have this. What does it stand for? Yet you go to another country, a person does this, it means what? Here they do this, it means what? And in another country, a person will do this and it will mean something different. So those are understandable, simple. So there has to be some mutuality there, in that when you do this, it means whatever you're saying. I'm not a politician, right? So the crucial element here is communication has its central objective in transmitting what? Meaning, right? So we are transmitting meaning. It's not just information. So the important thing we should note as we do communicate in our day-to-day lives, meaning should be key and central in our communication. So the process of communication is successful only when the receiver understands an idea as the sender intended it. I think we have mentioned that. So it doesn't make sense for you to spend hours ourselves in order before you speak. All right. In the army, they have different symbols. If they are in war, there are symbols that they will make for the people to know that we are under attack or we are outnumbered without you making any noise. So they will do something and you know we have to take this direction. So all those are symbols. So if there is a divergence in any of the symbols used, you will end up with miscommunication. Right. I know earlier before our beloved organizers of this wonderful event highlighted most of this. Asaf, the communication. I mean, why do we have communication as a presentation here? Those of us that are familiar with Asaf or that have learned about Asaf today, we know that the overall objective for Asaf is to enhance learning mobility and innovation, competitiveness in Africa by supporting young people's employability, career, perspectives, entrepreneurship, by strengthening their participatory and leadership skills. Dr. Rose talked about this. You cannot excel in the marketplace if your communication is poor. So this is why we have this on board today. Asaf is also committed to positively contribute to its members' professional and personal development while we are here by strengthening their capacities through innovative projects like the one we have, social entrepreneurships and skills training. I believe this is one of them. All right. What is the role of communication in any organization? Your organization could be your family, where you work from, the people you relate with most of the time. Communication is a key thing in managing human resource. You can't manage human resource if the communication is not there, or it is lame, or it is crippled. So it is a tool that we use to influence others, attitudes, and many other things. So communication is key in managing human resource. And I believe any person that goes into leadership or management, communication is one of the key foundations they should be having. So for those of us who are here and are employers, please, this is something we need to work on. Two, communication is central to the success of everything that we do in any organization. Like I've mentioned, family, your hobby group, your city, your town. So all these things that you do will succeed or fail if the ability to communicate is not there or if it is ineffective. So communication is key. Another purpose we can look at, like our MC did mention, building positive interpersonal relationships. So if you cannot relate effectively if your communication is poor. It's key in interpersonal relationships, bridging gaps between people, misunderstandings, and a lot of things. Number 4, communication is that glue that sticks, that holds an organization together. Whatever business it is, if communication is not there, it cannot function. So communication is something that is key in holding whatever we do together. Number 5, I'm just highlighting it. These are things that we know. Communication will enable you express your ideas and thoughts effectively, whether in writing or in speech. Dr. Rose was mentioning here that in this era that we are in of emojis and all kinds of things. People have lost that etiquette that firms that write CVs, applications, even visa applications, they are consultancy firms. So people have lost the touch of communication. So this is something that we should not really undermine. All right. Communication, this we all know. If you work with a team, communication helps in team building and teamwork. Because without communication, you can't hold people together. Then, if we are looking at companies and all that, marketing your products and services, the way you put the information out, which is communicating, will determine whether people buy into your product or people will leave the product. You might have a good product or a good service, but failure for you to communicate it well, you might end up with losses, yet you have a good product. So communication, actually, these marketing companies invest a lot in communication. Is that right? A lot of money is put into communication. In communication is the packaging. Do we know that? That packaging is communication. Branding is communication. Because branding speaks even without the manufacturer speaking. So when you go to the supermarket and you want to buy coffee, even if it is not tasty, but the wrapping, the words, they are, how do they call them? Slogans. The taste of life. Seriously? The coffee might be killing you the next day, but they put the taste of life. So that is all communication you run into to buy such a product. So delegation of work, whether horizontally on your level or vertical, all those communication comes in, transacting business, building positive public relations. All these are communication. All right. Sorry, we didn't change that. But these are communication skills, simple things that anyone that wants to communicate should at least have or look at developing. One of them, like I told you earlier, that if you don't listen, anyone that will never listen will never learn. If you're always talking, you'll never learn. Because we learn a lot by listening. So a good communicator is a person who listens first. Have you ever been to a place? I have a medical background. So if a patient is seated before me and I look at the line that I have, so before they say, good morning, what's the problem today? I'm already at the prescription because I'm peeping outside to see the line of 200 I'm going to deal with. So before they even finish their story, I'm handing them the paper. I've not listened. So I wouldn't have helped that patient. So listening first, you need to understand before you do what? Before you respond, right? That is communication. Then another thing, I'll dwell shortly here because these are important. Show interest in the people you're communicating with. It shouldn't be like you have been tasked to just power out words before people, whether in a business, whether in class. Please show interest. In showing interest, you are bonding with these people, right? So if you don't show interest, you're this kind of boss that is just because you know you have the office, the title and everything, you are not concerned whether you talk, whether you do what, as long as you do what I'm commanding. So we should show interest in the people we are communicating with. Be relaxed and warm. Use eye contact. With eye contact, they always tell us, especially the professors here, because they talk every time, if you're scared of looking at a person's eye, because different cultures have different people. For example, here in Uganda, there is a culture, those of us that are from here know, that from childhood, they tell a person, it's like they forbid you from looking at a person so much in the eye. So every time person, when they are greeting, it's a culture. So as people grow up, you have to kick that out of them, okay? Use eye contact. With eye contact, in our profession, you read a lot of things from a person's eye. As they walk in, we are trained to observe a person as they walk in. Look at their eye. You understand a lot of things. So eye contact is a very important thing in communication. Ask purposeful questions, things that show interest in the person you're talking to. Show that you trust and respect the other person. I can't be talking with you. We have this era of smartphones. Can I borrow one? I'm not borrowing. Auntie Liz, I'm borrowing. Okay? You come to my consultation room. You are very sick. Good morning. I'm the doctor. Good morning. And that thing makes noise. You know those things that make noise of WhatsApp? And ding! What's the problem? Another one comes. You even smile. So what did you say? And that happens. You go to a shop or a supermarket, you're trying to inquire about something, and the person you've taken money to is busy on what? Or busy on the screen watching a certain soap. And meanwhile you're asking, Madam, how much is this? Me, I made a resolution, I just walk out, even if it is the only shop. Imagine there are thousands of us like me coming to your shop. You will have missed out on money. So please show trust and respect to the other person. Be non-judgmental to the views of the other person. This is so important. Find out the reasons for their views. So in being judgmental, you are not interested in listening to the other person. From the time they speak, for example, there is a time I used to work with patients who have HIV and AIDS. And we used to be very keen up to today, where they say, you don't miss an appointment. We give you a 3 months refill to come back. You come back because we count those pills and the days. We give you a 3 months refill. We expect you to come back today, and you come after 2 weeks. You find when we are not annoyed, but beyond that, because we know you're not taking your pills. So not most, but they've improved. Such a patient, even before they say anything, he said, you missed your appointment, you're not taking drugs, don't you want life? But for God's sake, this dear lady or man could have gotten a problem. Or they got an accident and they've been admitted somewhere. And before they say anything, you are rushing with all the bombs before you even listen to anything. So you're judging even before you find out the view of that other person, right? So communication, this is important if you're going to be a good communicator. Then lastly, be honest and be genuine. All right. This is not for us. This is when you're sitting people for days and teaching communication. So we'll just highlight these things. So sorry for that. We didn't change that. It's a bit harming to the eyes. So the essentials or principles of effective communication. Dr. Ross talked about many things that have fallen out in this generation we are in, the .com era. But correctness, even if it is a letter, it is an email, it is anything that you're doing, if it's a letter, we are looking at correctness, the spelling, the grammar. Surely it take a lot of time with using today's communication, and you're not so much into, I call it office work, where you write emails, you go make presentations, you discover that you lose touch of some of these things. Am I right? Eh? The hyphenations, the different things, the commas where they are supposed to be. And then there's another thing that has crippled us today. How many of us know, how do they call it? Is it Grammarly or something? Those apps, where you put in and they just correct everything for you. So all these have made us lame and a problem, right? So we look at the correctness, everything in it, the spellings and all that. All those are key things. Oh, the appearance, the layout, the information conveyed, is it correct? Is it accurate? The tone. Do you know that when you're reading a person's letter, there is a tone there? Eh? A person can be arrogant without knowing. Do you know that? But the person you're writing to an email, I had a boss some time back who used to tell us, if you are annoyed, disappointed, frustrated, don't respond to any email. Even if it takes 2 hours, come back to your own mind, your own senses. Sit down on your laptop or whatever it is and write. Because in writing, you might have a different tone and you're not aware. So this is all communication. By the time you know, you receive a phone call or an email saying, sorry, we can't have your services anymore. But it was the tone in the email you wrote. But for you, you are just writing. So this is all important for us. We looked at correctness. Then we are looking at clarity. The things that you're communicating, you're writing, whichever mode that you're using. The important thing is that the message must be clear at the first reading. You know, they tell us first impressions. All right. First impressions have a lot to say, not so? So, first reading, it should be something that takes the reader or whoever you're communicating to just a few minutes to grab on that. So, clarity is something. Use simple everyday words. I talked about that. Avoid medical terms. I can't come here speaking medical terms when majority of the people are not medical. So when you're communicating, like I said, don't speak to make an impression. Express whatever you want to express, okay? Use simple language, short and simple sentences. Don't get me wrong. Me, I'm a trainer. These are many. So proper punctuations and pauses. Proper punctuations and pause phrases. Then we look at consistency. If it's writing, he has connived with the MC. I knew it from the first time I entered when I saw his face. I'm joking. Okay, thank you so much. So I was also doubting, saying, really? Have I taken all this time? So consistency is something that is key. You know, if you're writing, for example, I'll give you this short story. I told it to my sister Janet here. Last year, I was traveling to the US. And here in Uganda, there is a thinking, I don't know, it's true, that getting a visa to the US is one of the most difficult things. And it is true. So when I went for that visa interview, the counselor that was there behind that glass window asked me something. He said, are you this? I said, yes. Responded. After 20 seconds, he repeated the same thing. I gave him the same answer. We continued. He did it the third time. He was looking for consistency. Whether to figure out whether there is a fraudster before him who wants to run into their country because they have a belief whoever goes to America wants to stay there. Some of us are Africans by birth, descent, and everything. We don't want anything there. We go and do whatever we want and come back. Consistency is key in whatever you're doing. Punctualization, capitalization, whether it's measures. So there should be consistency. Coherence simply means there should be a logical sequence of how your ideas flow. You don't begin something and say, yes, as we were going to Kenya, then we branched over to Dar es Salaam. There's no Dar es Salaam in Kenya. There should be, the way your things should be flowing, there should be coherence in whatever you're doing, a clear plan. Then concreteness, giving definite and concrete details with figures and names. I highlighted a few examples for us there. Avoid things like in due course, at your earliest convenience. There are things that you can use that will bring out the meaning without, confusing a person. Use Simple things, concrete, straight to the point. All right. Number 6, we are talking about expressing yourself in a few words. You see, the more you talk, somehow, somewhere, people will get lost or get disinterested. So, in business, it simply means you keep to the point. Something important there to watch is using a few words as possible without sacrificing clarity or courtesy. So, use the few words that you can use, but let the meaning stay in whatever you're communicating. So, I gave a few examples for us. They are living out. I used the word modifiers there. There is no need for you to say in your writing or your communication that there is a new innovation. Innovation already is innovation. You don't need to add the word new because there is nothing, there can never be an old innovation. So avoid unnecessary things. So the person reading or listening to you might not tell you, but they will be in their house saying, what is this person saying? You might want to prove a point by saying very unique. There's nothing like very unique. Unique is a definition of it's sufficient, okay? Or one of its kind. So you see, all these things are important in communication that you might overlook or underlook, but have a lot to say. Reduce unimportant ideas. For example, of saying in the form of simply say as. In many cases, often you use a few things. All right, courtesy. I talked about that. In your communication, please consider people's what? Consider people's feelings as you do your communication at whatever level that you are. Whether you're a senior manager, whether you're the president, please, professor, like Dr. Rose, consider people's what? Consider people's feelings. For a well-mannered and courteous person shows consideration and thought of others. Courtesy, like I mentioned before, can also be seen in your letter. Whether it is a WhatsApp message, you see, this WhatsApp is a dangerous thing. After you have sent the message, you realize what you sent is not what you intended to send. And Dr. Ross told us, avoid using WhatsApp while communicating to your bosses, senior people, because you can write something that can cause you a lot of trouble. Okay? So, simple words like, these things have disappeared from our generation today. Simple words like please, thank you, excuse me, sorry. All these are things in communication that are so important. So, make a person feel comfortable. So the important thing, like we saw, is courtesy. This is all resounding the same thing. These are some few phrases in case you had forgotten. You're a business person. We appreciate your promptness in sending the goods. Thank you for sending your quotation so promptly. You want to communicate something, but you don't want to be in a hurry or sound arrogant. We are sorry to learn that you are inconvenienced. Requests must also be made courteously. Lastly, will you please look into this matter at once? It sounds like you are commanding, but you're using a polite word, a polite way of speaking. So all this is communication that we need in our day-to-day lives as we carry on our lives. Be attentive and prompt in responding. I won't go much into that. Then this we have talked over and over. Let the tone and the choice of your words and the style of the message reflect the consideration of the feelings of the other person on the other side. So this is all important. Sometimes we lose, I'll say this, sometimes we lose important contacts. Apart from the whites are people that I've seen that are very frank. If something is not okay, he will tell you it's not okay. But our culture here is a person who will keep quiet and say, you hurt me in that message. But they won't speak to you back. So you lose an important contact or connection because of the words that you used. Completeness, lastly. The message communicated must have all the details needed in it and all the information for the purpose of proper understanding and response from the receiver. All right. This, I'm just going to highlight these things we know, but I'll just highlight them. That there are barriers to effective communication. Sorry about that background. Communication, like we saw, is not always successful. There are many things that will prevent a message from reaching the intended recipient. Some of them can be physical barriers. For example, if we're here in this hotel, we are having this important meeting, and there is a construction site behind here. With those graders, they are trying to break through the concrete. We won't be hearing. So some of them are physical barriers. Defects in whatever medium that you're using can be an example there. Noise, I've mentioned that. Information overload that I'm trying to avoid as we go to lunch can also be a barrier, apart from Dr. Ross, who has gone for lunch before us. Semantic and language barrier. Semantic is a simple word, English word that has to go for meanings pertaining to or arising from different meanings of words. There are many words that we use that have more than two meanings, okay? For example, there are a few that I highlighted. The word charge. It can mean so many different things. So how you pronounce it, different things. Check, so depending which English you're using, ring. Then I have some words down here. For example, this one. Let me have two people pronounce that for me. That one I've pointed at. You hear that? Eh? So we have minute and what? Then the next one. So you see, those are semantics. You're having the same word but with diverse meanings. So depending on how you use it, I put some words here. We have this one here. You see that? You can have what? And, but how you speak them out. Or that has a problem with what? With communication. These are simple things. Now like this one's here. And the other one. And the other one. This one and that one. You see that? Not many of us are gifted like our dear professors here. Some of us might struggle to pronounce those things. Okay? So, emotional and cultural attitudes, all these have to do with the way we communicate. Then phrases, different phrases, how you use them. I talked about the technical terms. Kindly, when you come in a meeting like this, I don't expect me to be here blabbering medical terms, trying to impress. I want to communicate. So you don't need to use things that will be difficult for people to understand. So don't think they will look at you and say, this man is not learned. When we were studying, we used to have a dictionary called, I don't know whether there are people here my age who can remember that dictionary. Michael West or something. Yes, Michael West. That used to be a simple one. Please don't bring out these advanced ones. Communicate. Let people understand. Okay? It takes nothing away from you, but let people understand. Then, a dialect, for example, would identify a person geographically, and identically, certain slangs would refer. For example, if you go, those of you that are well-traveled, if you go to the US, you don't have to go there. If you've worked with Americans, you realize that they have different ways of speaking. And if you work more with them, you will know that this one is from Texas. This one is from Southwest because of the way they do what? They speak. So it is also important to know such a background, the people you're dealing with. It will help you so much as you communicate. All right, we can have organizational barriers, editing and filtering for those of you who are managers here. You have a junior who gives you a message. You filter it before it gets to the dean to either profit you, because this junior might be reporting you. So you filter the message, take out the threat to you, and send the rest. Same thing downward. So all these are barriers because the person writing the message had a different intention. But this filtering that happens at different levels affects the message that gets to the leader or wherever it is going. So this happens, and that they call that office politics. So all this loss of information, and this one here that the managers don't want. Deliberate withholding of information from peers who are perceived as rivals. They all have a master's or PhD, and there's one position they all have to get. So the one will try to sabotage the other. Yet communication is supposed to go on. So all those things happen in communication. Then, overdependence on written communication. Too much dependence on written communication is one of the reasons for communication gaps. We've looked at that. You'll find that there are still quite a number of people that are not able to read or understand long messages. So as you're communicating, put into consideration all these things. We have cultural barriers. I can't talk much about that. You know, each culture has its shortcomings. Gender barriers, this one I won't speak about. The ladies might throw stones at me. I have a few minutes, or the gents, because according to this, ladies are supposed to speak so much. This is research founded. So ladies speak a lot of words. It has to do with the chemistry that is in the brain. So these are also barriers. There are also gender barriers in communication. Social, psychological barriers, all these things to do with feelings, desires, fears, hopes, self-centered attitude, group identification. All these has to do with social, psychological barriers, self-image, how a person portrays themselves or think about themselves, self-perception, filtering, we've talked about it. And then we have this famous one, the status block. A boss who is conscious of status finds it difficult to receive any suggestion from subordinates. This is a dangerous weevil that is killing many institutions, because there are many people that will come in young as they are, but with bright ideas. So you don't need to lock them out. That's communication. Resistance to change. There are people that say, as it was, so it is, and so shall it continue to be. We found this organization. You don't talk us out of it. We don't want your innovations. We know why we started it. They are resistant to change. Closed-minded. There are people who close their minds. They enter into a meeting and they know what they want. Bring your suggestions. It is up to you. Closed mind. Poor communication skills. You could be having a problem. They want a handwritten application, but you can't express yourself. Yet when they put you on that machine, you are the best at it. But there is no way you can convince them that I know how to operate this machine. So all these are challenges. A person can't speak. There are people who are not good orators, but hands-on, they are excellent. Okay? There are people who, when we used to study, there are people who would be very good. Give him a physics number. Before seconds, it is done. But tell him to explain. He will bite his tongue. State of health, experiential barriers, perceptual barriers, all those things. Emotional barriers, these we've talked about. The hidden agendas, all those are barriers to communication. Stereotypes, you know what a stereotype is. That one is a dangerous one in your way to communication. Then defensiveness. There are people who will feel threatened by any message you speak, whether by background or things that have happened to them in the course of life. So overcoming barriers, these are simple things that we know. Training like this one. is important. Like Dr. Rose, I picked a lot of things from your session. Trainings like this, you learn many things. That one on time, I've written it down. Time on time and all those things. So I will use it somewhere in Thailand. I'll take your glory. But anyway, it is that's what the beauty of trainings, okay? Some organizations have health centers that help people. Then cultivate communication skills. It's important. Channels should be open in any organization where people can express themselves freely, notes boards, one-on-ones, all those are ways of overcoming. Then the semantics, we looked at it. You have to be careful the language you're using. Make sure what you actually mean is what you're putting down or communicating. Personal barriers. If you have a problem, a challenge, and people keep pointing it out, you take a conscious effort to improve on yourself, to become better, a better communicator. Then cultural barriers. This is important for us because we travel everywhere, whether in or outside. It is better not to assume similarity with those from other cultures until you are sure. You hear that, friends? It is safer to assume difference till you are sure of similarity. Don't take things for granted. That here they greet by hugging. Some cultures, it is a taboo. They say, approach someone's wife in an indecent manner. So please, watch those things well. No, as I finish, I think this will be our last. Etiquette is important. Dr. Rose talked about this. I keep mentioning her because I came in late. And I am sorry for coming late. So, she's the person I got to listen to. So, etiquette, we know etiquette. Every profession has their code of conduct, the way they handle their things. So, all these things are important. Etiquette, official etiquette, the protocol, and diplomacy. Down here, there are some few words there. A cultured person is marked by a behavior that shows respect and courtesy to everyone, regardless of position. So, importance of etiquette. Good interpersonal relationships with your fellow staff. A good image of the company. You see, people can hate a company because of one receptionist. Do you know that? Person walks in and the reception looks like they were dragged through a keyhole to come to work. You picked that. You know a person dragged through a keyhole, how they look. It looks like they were dragged through a keyhole to come to work. Good image of individual employee, customer satisfaction, all these are importances of official etiquette because as we leave school, most of these things are not taught to people. A person walks out with many papers, but you look at them and say, really? Is this the office? Or I came to a different place? Areas of official etiquette has to do with personal behavior, how you conduct yourself, including belching and burping, like I said it. So all these things, as a leader or anywhere you are, you should watch all those things, the posture, how you stand in people. Don't stand like your legs are leaning on a toothpick and you're standing before people. All these things people are supposed to know, how you greet people, you know. You meet your senior manager, person in their 60s and say, hello, hi. Really? These are things, personal behavior. All that has to do with how you communicate. It talks a lot about people. There's this one here. Please, MC, I need to finish this thing before they kick me out, especially the ladies. Combing. You can't be in an international meeting, for God's sake, and you pull out the ladies, you pull out your mirror. Now like they're live streaming. And the people in New Zealand are seeing you applying your lipstick and you're the company manager. That has a lot of to do. Oh, you're a gent and you pick out your comb and they are live streaming. There is that one also. Simple things. In our profession, there are things they don't want us to use. You don't put on a strong perfume or cologne because there are people that will be allergic in that hospital. So you create sicknesses where you're going to save lives. So every place has its own etiquette. You might influence your neighbor. Greetings. I talked about this. The way you greet people, all has to do with communication, making an apology depending on whom you are with. Sorry, I'm sorry. There are lots of things. For example, here there's something I wrote. A formal written apology uses the words I or we regret this inconvenience we caused you. By the way, let me tell us something. Words have a lot to do with upsetting big situations. How you present those words, how you communicate. We are told in our neighbors in Rwanda here. I was able to go there after the genocide. I saw all those troubles there. Simple words. A person stood on radio and spoke a few words that stirred up people to pick up machetes and pangas. Few words. So this is something that should be important. Expressing thanks and appreciation. Something I will talk about here. Yeah, there are many things you can talk about. How you represent yourself, saying thank you, we appreciate your help. Simple words that can make a person say, yes, we gave this lady or gentleman a good service. Conversation, how you speak to people. You can talk to a person and you would think they are arrogant, but they are not. But they have not been groomed to know how to do what? To present themselves, okay? So conversations, all those are important things in communication. Introducing yourself. I missed the dinner. I missed to see this thing here yesterday. Should have been around. So, introductions may appear simple, but these are the few moments in which critical first impressions are made on all sides. First impressions do matter. How you introduce yourself. You know that even how you hold the glass on yesterday's function speaks a lot about you. Eh? Uh-huh. You hear that? Eh? You're holding, for example, they've provided us with cold drinks and you love that cold drink. I don't know which one you love. You're holding it here. And then Madame Liz comes, you put it down with that ice cold hand. You want to shake the hand. Those are simple things. You don't hold the glass in the right hand. It is reserved for greeting. But all these are what? Simple things that you who did it yesterday, don't look at me like that. I was not here, okay? Shaking hands, this has a lot to do. It talks a lot about your confidence as you shake your hand. I was in a school, secondary school, part of the secondary school that was headed by a white. He was the only one permitted to cane students. And this is one of the reasons why he would cane you. Greet him without looking him in the eye. He said, bring my hippo's whip, put you down and give you 15. And after he says, you know why? You didn't look me in the eye while you are greeting. So all those are things we need to know. A handshake speaks a lot about your personality. Then, that one I won't talk about, I've mentioned it. There's this other simple one. You're hiding your name tags. I was going to check you on this one. So, at a simple conference or other function where participants use name tags, wear the name tag on the right shoulder so that it is easy to read when a person is shaking your hand. Don't change. Okay? It has no problem where it is. So, all these are simple things. Paying compliments. A person should not say, you are smart, Madam Chisache. And then you give him something that is so weird. It's like you're kicking him off. Say, that is my normal. For God's sake, please. I'm not saying she does that. Find a way of, responding appropriately, different things. Avoid compliments that are sarcastic, especially here in Uganda. People are so sarcastic, dangerous people. Responding to compliments, agreeing and disagreeing. All these are important things. Telephone etiquette. This, I think, is the second last slide. No, let me mention this before I leave, because it's very important. Very important, especially for us. Also, I'll read it. An artificially polite statement like, for example, you're in a meeting, people bring up different suggestions, different things to talk about, but because you know what Mr. Kagwa is saying is totally wrong, you come out arrogantly and say, I disagree. That is terribly wrong. It is not a polite way. You must find a way. I've just projected something here for us. And you say, I beg to differ. That person can hate you the rest of their lives. They could have injected months into this research. And all you come out in one statement to say, I differ. That is not right. Well, what are your methods? No, I beg to differ. It's not friendly, but it is a put down. You see, it looks something so good, polite, but it is not what? It's not polite. It is a put down. It is a put down. You are assertive. You can express disagreement without being what? Without offensive. Being what? Offensive. When you disagree, instead of keeping silent or responding aggressively, like I just mentioned, try some positive assertiveness. The key is there. Listen carefully and summarize what the other person had said. Then state your own position. Okay? You're appreciating what they have done. Then you state your own position without attacking the other person. It is not good to attack people because they also invest a lot in what they present. Okay? It's all communication. So it is useful to say things like, I would like to state another opinion of this view. You are polite, though disagreeing behind. Okay? Telephone etiquette, that one I won't talk about. You're all seniors here for that. I'm standing in between your lunch, or these are taking a call. These are simple things. You're on the other side of the call and you say, hello, who is this speaking? But at least the telephone companies have done us good. They've trained these people. They have some good etiquette. Leaving a voicemail, here we don't use that so much. And the last message is this one. Thank you so much. So I've tried to rush through these things, but just trying to highlight a few things. Communication is very important. It is a key in everything that we do. So thank you so much. Mr. MC, they are looking at you with an angry eye saying the chicken is becoming cold.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. Again, let's give him a hand of applause. And now, I think we're going to do Q&A, but then that's not on me, it's on them. Yeah, because he has done
their
it
lunch
first.
first.
Yes. How you take to ask your questions will determine when you go for lunch. Yeah, Q&A.
Not questions only, compliments also, and additions and subtractions.
Just a quick one. I think we've done a great disservice to this presentation. It needed to be longer than this because it's very practical. And there are a lot of things now he had to skim through because of the time. So I pray that maybe we may get another opportunity to listen to you longer. That was excellent. Thank you so much. But just one golden rule. You know, in Kenya, we have a saying, especially for those people who murder language, that as long as I've communicated. So they don't want to care about the spelling or the grammar. But I have this rule that I want to pass on to us. If you're going to use another person's language in communicating to them, please use it correctly. If you're going to use English to apply for these Erasmus programs, make sure you know the distinction between American English and British English, so that yours is not a misspelling because of the orientation. Are we together? So, because they take very keen attention to that, the language that you use. So if you use a person's language, try and use it correctly in official communication. I think he has mixed both official and unofficial communication, but in official communication, the language is very important that you use it correctly. I think that's what I would want to add. Otherwise, I really think we needed like 2 hours. I could listen to you on and on because you're just speaking to what we normally do. So please use the English correctly and the version of English.
Thank you.
Mr. Mleba, you have a ticket to Kenya because now you have business. People are.
Okay. Networking.
Thank you very much for that. I am passionate about communication. But then I just have a small comment, non-verbal communication, which is also official sometimes. You be walking around like, now we are here, and then you meet somebody, you are ready to say good morning to that person. And the person looks the other side and just passes by. That is communication. But I don't know, well, there might be so many reasons why people do that. But it is so upsetting, honestly. And especially if this person is above you, they have a rank above you. It is like, why are you bothering me with your good mornings and good afternoons? You don't measure up to my, to my rank or something like that. But I think that is a very rude and very unkind way of communication. It is communication as it is. That's my comment. Thank you.
You so much.
Yeah, there's one observation that I've seen currently. Many of us are using social media, basically, especially the WhatsApp for communication. And we get so much annoyed when we are blue ticked. When you write to me, then I read your message without responding back. It annoys you, you know. So I think, or sometimes taking long to be responded to, you know. I think sometimes we need to understand the reason as to why some people haven't responded to us at that particular time. We should give them a mind of doubt and see what comes up. It annoys anyway. It annoys, but maybe as we go on, we have planned each other how they respond to us.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mr. Innocent.
We can talk the whole day, so I'm just going to limit it to more two, I think.
Okay, thank you for the presentations. And I just want to, I don't know if it's a question or something, a comment, I'm not sure. But I want you to say something about what we all know. Communication is about talking, saying something. But sometimes silence is also a communication. So can you say something about, we should know how to talk, yes, but where to talk and where not to talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Mine is a question. What would be the ideal communication language to a person whom you need help from, and that person is the topmost or is your boss, and he has no good communication language? What would be the ideal language that I'm opt to use to harness what I want to achieve from that person? Thank you.
You're welcome. So thank you so much for the responses, for Dr. Rose, for that addition. I believe we've all picked it up, okay? I'm also communicating while moving around, okay? Madame Florence, that is communication. I would have said, Mama at the back there. It sounds polite, but there is a reason why she has a name tag on, right? So the onus is on me to make sure I find out her name. So Madame Chinji talked about something important. I didn't put that communication is so broad, the verbal, non-verbal communication. Now, to answer that, Madam Change, if you meet a person and they are your senior in the corridors as you walk, and probably they are here near Miss Josephine, and you say, "Good morning, Miss Josephine." "Good morning, Madam Josephine." You have done your part. Okay? Because why did I greet her the second time? Is I'm asking myself, did she not hear me the first time? Okay? So I'll greet you again. If you don't respond and you put on another face, like she said, I will have done my part. For concern's sake, I've done what is right. A moral person should do. So, but this would be my advice to you is not my advice, my take on it. Communication. Keep doing what you know is right to do. Okay? I don't know whether here you are believers or you're not believers, but for the believers, there's a story that Christ gave and talked about the persistent widow. You remember that story? Keep doing what is good. Keep greeting. I assure you a day will come when they sit in their office and say, but this lady, even when I try to put her off, she keeps greeting me. If they are from Mars and they never respond positively, it is okay. Ma'am, but you've done your part. But keep doing as a morally upright person what you know to do. Because you might also develop this and say, if they don't bother, who loses? If I greet her, she doesn't respond, who loses? For concern's sake, keep greeting them. If they change in future, they will say, probably, actually, there are some who will test you with that. But there are few. They will try to ignore you to see your real character. There are managers who do that. They will throw a small thing, try to pretend they are not hearing, but it's either way. But my take on that is keep doing the right thing. They don't respond to you, it is okay. But do what is morally right, okay? Then the other question was here, not so? From a professor. That is a question for professors, okay? What was the question, Madam Liz? It is part of communication. What was the question, Mr. Bonnie? Okay. Yes, Mr. Bukenya. Remember, you're standing in between your own chicken, but I'm responding. What was the question? I'm checking for attentiveness.
He said,
because I know the question.
He said
Yes.
that if you communicate to someone and that someone keeps quiet, what can you do?
Okay.
And for Mr. Innocent, he was like,
Yes, I remember. Mr. Bukenya, please. Thank you so much, Mr. Bukenya. So, silence is also communication. Okay? But there is where silence is not called for. Okay? I'll give you an example. If you come to me and say, Madam Such, say you are a fool, I've not met a fool like you. How do you keep on doing such a thing from January up to December? I know I'm not a fool. I don't need to respond to you by saying I'm not a fool, because in so doing, the tempers will do what? Flare up, okay? So there is where you keep silence, but there is where you don't keep silence. You heard the phrasing I used. Another person will speak out arrogantly but asking a question. If they're your senior manager and they're asking, even if they're arrogant, but they have, I don't want to say some sense, it's the wrong word to use. They want to express something. why do you keep on coming late? Is what is behind their speaking. But they are speaking it out in an arrogant way. Find a way of responding. Because they are your manager, right? Don't respond the same way. Don't attack them. Okay? But silence, there's where it is called for and there's where it is not called for. I've just tried to give us scenarios, okay? There is where you want to respond to something and you're going to add insult to injury. Okay? Because you're also boiling inside. So it would be better you respond in a different way or choose another alternative source of responding. I'm also coming to what Mr. Kagwa has said. You have a senior manager who you said has this no care attitude. There are many, and what I wanted to ask or to say to you, Mr. Kagwa, is one, it depends on what you want to communicate to them. What do you want from them? If they're the only person that have what you need, their official communication ways or channels of communication, write an email. Okay? If that thing is so demanding, pressing that it would compromise your functionality in your work, and the way you're pursuing something that is not only of interest to you probably, but to your office, your organization, your line of duty, you can copy someone. You say, Mr. Kagwa, following up on our conversation before, I try to do this. So I'm trying to follow up to, you use polite language. Then you can copy in another person that can either get to him or give you a response. Okay? So there are many ways to go about that. If you can't meet them physically, right? If they don't allow you to call and they say my phone is uncallable, write email and communicate. Copy another person. Pass through another person. There are people who are high. Don't you say I'm here, but there are people who say I'm very tough. Because by nature, I'm a bit reserved. I don't talk so much unless I'm doing something, like now. Now you say I have many words. But those who know me know I don't talk much. But you find a way of communicating to that person. Official ways, copy in someone after the first attempt. They will get to them eventually. Hope I've answered you. The chicken is getting ice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Again, let's appreciate him again. Dear God, we thank you for the session we've taken as we go to have our meal. May you bless it. May we use the food that we are going to eat to get strength to do your work. In Jesus' name we prayed. Then lunch is served, not dinner. Lunch is served. So let's be back by, I think, 2:30. 2:30. We must be out of here by 4. So some people want to travel. Other people have flights. So, yeah. See you. Enjoy the lunch. Same place where we had dinner.